Happy Halloween, everyone. I hope you're having a good holiday. But for this year, I thought I would go through one of the most iconic movie franchises of all time, the Halloween series, since it's, Halloween and all that. And that was the plan until I realized there are 13 Halloween movies. How do you make 13 movies about a guy who stabs people with knives? How do you do that? Anyway, since we're both here, and since this is one of the biggest film franchises ever, and it's literally called Halloween, we're gonna go through it together. I'm not really gonna go in depth with the plot summary or a review or anything, but I will put them all on a tier list, and there'll be 3 tiers. They'll be actually good, worth a watch, I guess, and who cares? So without further ado, let's go through this very long movie franchise together.
The first Halloween movie is by far the best. John Carpenter's 1978 original is an influential, defining horror movie that brings about the modern slasher genre. It's eerie, it includes many tropes that hundreds of horror movies try to imitate later, and Michael is actually scary because he's a realistic threat in this. He's just some guy with a knife. That only really becomes an issue after this movie. It's not perfect though. I do think it takes a really long time to get going, and at some points the movie drags, but the way it birthed so many iconic horror concepts, or at least brought it to the mainstream while being accompanied by an iconic soundtrack and a scary bad guy akin to someone you could actually encounter in real life, makes this movie a classic. If you haven't seen it, go watch it, especially on Halloween. This one is going in actually good because it's the best one. It only makes sense that there would be a sequel, Halloween 2, given how popular the first one was, but very quickly upon watching this movie do you realize that this whole film could have just been a 10-minute epilogue to the last one. Not much really happens in it. Laurie, the main character from the last one, goes to the hospital because of her injuries, and Michael Myers is going around killing a bunch of people to get to her. To up the ante, though, the movie aims for significantly more brutal kills and has this really bizarre plot twist that Laurie and Michael are actually siblings who were separated after he killed his parents, which is why he's trying to kill her. It all just comes across like they didn't really have any ideas for a sequel and just threw a bunch of stuff at the wall hoping something would stick. And it doesn't really, because there was never even meant to be a sequel. They put together this movie for the sole purpose of cashing in on the success of the first one. So I'm putting this one in the who cares category. Like, Halloween may end on a cliffhanger, but it's a good standalone movie nonetheless. And this single sequel is already stretching the concept of a guy stabbing people with a knife pretty thin. And that brings us to Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, which doesn't really have a witch in it. And it doesn't have Michael Myers either. Halloween 3 instead opts to take the series in the route of making it an anthology series, with each film being about a different spooky story on Halloween. And also the fact that Michael Myers was shot in the head and burnt alive at the end of the last one, on top of the fact that doing the same movie over and over again just doesn't make it scary and wastes everybody's time. But anyway, this one is about some evil plot involving magic and sacrificing children using like TV screens and Halloween masks. Yeah, there's a lot going on here, and it's a shame that this one wasn't just a bit better, because maybe then the Halloween series could have done something unique each film. This one isn't really much of a slasher movie as it is about a guy who's very serious about the origins of Halloween as this sacrificial thing instead of being this corporatized money-making machine, which is funny because the Halloween franchise is a corporatized money-making machine. I'll put this one in worth a watch, I guess, because at the very least it's something strange and different. Because nobody could accept that the last Halloween movie was about something other than Michael Myers stabbing people, I guess the studio thought it was time to revive this successful franchise, which really only had one success, and they brought back Michael, and they aptly titled Return of Michael Myers. So yeah, he survived being shot in the head and burnt to death at the end of the last movie, and he's back to stab people. But Dr. Loomis, the doctor who originally treated Michael in the first movie, and also blew himself up at the end of the second, he's also back somehow. But apparently Laurie, the main character from the other two movies, she died in between films, but not before she had a daughter, and guess what? Michael Myers is going after her. So, do you see the problem with this? It's just the same movie again. I don't care if Michael Myers kills people in slightly different ways. It's just the same thing I've already seen for a third time now, done worse. They were already stretching the limit with one sequel. Now we're 2 sequels into this original timeline, and I'd rather just rewatch the first one. At the end, the townspeople go after Michael and he falls into a hole and dies, but for some reason Laurie's daughter becomes a serial killer like Michael. that's a way to end the movie, I guess. I don't know. This is just going in the who cares category. Since the last movie was moderately successful, they rushed out a sequel, and it's just the same thing. Michael Myers is back. He's stabbing people. He somehow can't kill the main characters, and, is defeated at the end, even though we'll know he'll be back, even if he's shot and killed and whatever. Look, I don't understand who this is for. It's just the same movie over and over again, but getting progressively worse. Like, don't you guys just want something new? Now look, there are some differences in these movies, but fundamentally, they are the same. It feels like nothing but wasted potential, reusing a tired concept and built on nothing but cliches when the original was so influential. I also want to say that, these movies were released over many years, and I don't have the context of watching them all when they came out in theaters with others during Halloween with such a long gap in between. So maybe I wouldn't be so harsh on it, since I'm like binging through the series, but that being said, the movies still need to hold on their own, and this just doesn't. It's the same thing over and over again. It's a horror series that isn't scary, that retreads the same ground almost every single time, while taking it to the extreme to try and one-up itself, but just falling flat constantly, being so far removed from what made the original so good, and it just wastes everyone's time. Also, why does Michael Myers' mask keep looking worse in every movie? Just use the same mask. I don't get it. But this is just going in who cares, because I don't care. I believe this is what the kids call jumping the shark. To make a very long story short, it's revealed that the reason Michael Myers does what he does is that he's been cursed by some cult and must kill his family to break that curse, which I guess is something different, but doesn't explain why he's pretty much immortal and why he kills everyone else that he comes across. But all it really does is overcomplicate what was originally a realistic, genuine threat and makes him an immortal, cult-powered, somewhat tragic figure who, at the end of the day, he still just stabs people with his knife, because that's really all these movies are about. No matter what they did with this movie, I don't think there was any positive direction to take it. If they took it back to basics, it would feel redundant. If they went bananas with it, it's too far removed from the original idea. Either way, this whole thing only should have been one movie, and the idea at this point is so worn out, it's going in the who cares category. H20, Halloween, 20 years later. That might actually be the worst title to a movie I have ever heard. Why is it so long? Is it supposed to be like H2O, like water? What does water have to do with anything? It's such a weird title for a movie. Marking the start of a new timeline, yes, this is now the third Halloween timeline in which only the first two movies are canon, is H20, Halloween, 20 years later. Laurie, she's back. She's living in California, and her life's going, pretty well, except for the trauma of what happened to her on Halloween 20 years ago. But her trauma is about to get even worse, because Michael Myers is back. Even though he was shot in the head and burned to death at the end of Halloween 2, he's back to stabbing people 20 years later somehow. But unfortunately, most of the movie plays out exactly how you think it will, where he's going around stabbing people, can't seem to kill the main character, and dies at the end. But the saving grace of this movie is that Laurie has her Ripley moment from Aliens, where she actually fights back against Michael Myers and decapitates him. It's satisfying for fans of the original, and for that reason alone, I would put this in worth a watch, I guess, just for the fact that, they finally kill this guy. It's not like the best movie ever, but I like it more than the other sequels so far. Anytime a series has Resurrection in the title, you just know that the series has gone too far. So it turns out that Laurie didn't actually kill Michael Myers at the end of the last movie. It was somebody Michael Myers switched costumes with. And you can already tell from that statement alone that I hate this movie. This is everything wrong with this franchise. We're not even at the point where Michael Myers just comes back to life inexplicably. Now we're at the point where they're just killing the wrong people somehow. There's only one guy who dresses up like Michael Myers, all right? There's only one of him. How do you decapitate the wrong person? Look, this movie, it's not worth your time. The found footage angle used at certain points, it's something interesting. It's just copying the Blair Witch Project, but it's slightly different. It's not worth your time. I'm putting this in the who cares category. Just let this franchise die in peace, please. And now it's time for Halloween. But not John Carpenter's Halloween, Rob Zombie's Halloween. Now, since all these movies are so similar, the thought of a remake or a reboot should make me want to throw up, but it actually is a little bit different. Rob Zombie opts for a significantly more violent depiction of Michael Myers, and this more intense style might be interesting to some viewers. The movie also explores the origins of Michael Myers, but I think it kind of falls flat because the whole idea of this child becoming the embodiment of all evil for seemingly no reason at such an early age is way scarier than the dysfunctional, tragic backstory route that they go with here. At least Michael Myers gets shot in the head at the end, point blank, so that's it, right? There's no sequels, that's the end, right? Anyway, I'll say it's worth a watch, I guess, for, at least the extreme style. And yeah, of course, this movie got a sequel titled H2, but not H2O, H20. It's Halloween 2. But not John Carpenter's Halloween 2, it's Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Confusing titles aside, what's not confusing is what happens in these movies, sort of, because they're all the same thing. So if you liked the last one and how extreme it was, you'll like this one, because it's even more extreme. It's so extreme, I'm like, what are we really doing here? I don't know. It's just a lot of really extreme stuff with some weird dream sequences, oddball, disturbing characters. I don't really know who these movies are for. I don't get it. Rob Zombie himself doesn't even like these movies because of all the studio interference, which just makes me wonder, how do you interfere with a movie that's mostly about some guy just stabbing other people? I don't know, but I'm putting this in the who cares category. Like, just watch the other Rob Zombie Halloween movie if you're gonna watch one of them. And that brings us to Halloween, but it's not Rob Zombie's Halloween, and it's not John Carpenter's Halloween. It's Halloween from 2018. This is the third movie that's just called Halloween. Yep, and this is also another new timeline. This is like the fourth or fifth timeline in this series of 13 movies about a guy who stabs people with a knife. I feel like my brain is melting out of my ears right now because we've overcomplicated something so simple. But anyway, do you remember H2O, the really stupid movie title? Yeah, this is just that movie if it was executed better. The music, Michael Myers, the family dynamic, Laurie wanting to kill Michael, all of that's here, just executed a little bit better. And because I'm feeling a little generous since I've been so harsh on the other Halloween movies, I'll put this one in actually good. I think it comes closer than any of the other sequels, so there's that. Because, of course, anytime these studios get a glimpse of success with a Halloween movie, they get way too greedy and jump into making a sequel. But I'll give them credit. The premise for this movie is pretty good. Everyone in this town is sick of Michael Myers as much as I am, and they band together to kill him. What ensues is the same kind of Halloween movie you've seen a million times before, but it's actually kind of funny this time because of all the scenes where no one is able to kill this old man Michael Myers. No one can do it. One person even manages to shoot themselves by accident. And because it's funny, I'll say it's worth watching, I guess. But outside of the kills, it's pretty boring. Halloween ends? Really? Good. It's about time. This is the worst of this trilogy, and at this point, I'm done talking about bad Halloween movies. Most of the movie is this weird love story no one cares about, and this guy who might be the successor to Michael Myers or something. I honestly forget most of what happens, and I don't think I would care if I remembered anyway, so it's going in the who cares category. Hopefully the title of this is true, and Halloween is done. The Halloween series is kind of like that guy who peaked in high school. He did something genuinely memorable once, and now spends the remainder of his days trying to remind all of his friends about that one cool thing, while everyone else has gone off to start a family, get jobs, and settle down. The first Halloween movie is genuinely great, and while there are some in here that are worth watching at least once, I guess, I'm sorry to say that this franchise just mostly sucks. Unlike Michael Myers, I hope this series truly stays dead, because I just can't imagine any other direction to take this. But the truly scary thing about all of this is that there will inevitably be another reboot, and it will probably make enough money to get a sequel, and the cycle will never end. If you like the Halloween movies, good for you. I don't, but let me know your thoughts in the comments. Have a happy Halloween, and I'll see y'all next time. Goodbye.